Will the audience please stand, and will the delegation from Utah and the friends of Dr. Edwards escort him to the podium? Thank you. Dr. Frito, it gives me, you may be seated. Is that correct? You may be seated. Thank you.
Sounds like a funeral.
Yeah. Dr. Frito, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present to you and the assembled guests, Dr. David Edwards, who has been elected president of the American Podiatric Medical Association. I'm honored to have been asked to install Dr. David Edwards as the president of the American Podiatric Medical Association. Dr. Edwards was introduced to podiatry by my father while he and my father were serving as missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. My dad was a podiatrist, and their friendship continued, and Dave became part of our family. My dad has passed away, and I'm sure he would be very proud to be here with Dr. Edwards. And I would love to, and I'm sure he would have loved to witness his installation. Dr. Edwards has been a champion for podiatry in the state of Utah. We are proud of him. The state of Utah has arranged for our entire board to be here for his installation along with his friends and his family. Dr. Edwards, you have been elected by your colleagues to the highest office of our profession. Your duties will be many, varied, and we trust that you will perform them with the best of your ability and will now administer the oath of office. If you'll raise your hand. I, say your name.
I, David Edwards.
In the presence of these witnesses here assembled.
In the presence of these witnesses here assembled.
Do solemnly promise to faithfully serve.
Do solemnly promise to faithfully serve.
The American Podiatric Medical Association as president to the best of my ability.
The American Podiatric Medical Association to the best of my ability.
I further promise that I will be fair.
I further promise I will be fair.
And impartial in my dealings.
Impartial in my dealings.
I will uphold the bylaws of the American Podiatric Medical Association.
I will uphold the bylaws of the American Podiatric Medical Association.
Congratulations.
Love you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure for me to give to you this gavel of authority. I admonish you to wield it with courtesy, impartiality, and dignity.
Dr. Speaker and members of the Board of Trustees, delegates, and my Utah delegates especially, distinguished guests, staff and friends, and my dear family, thank you so much. I was asked by a fellow board member after a prior presidential processional, what are you going to do? You've been here for a few of those. And I replied, have you heard of the Tabernacle Choir? The words of the hymn that you just listened to, they, the builders of our nation, blessed, honored pioneers. Our nation was built by pioneers, from many walks of life, and it continues to grow in that fashion in a similar way today. My vision for the year ahead is tied to that pioneering spirit, and we've seen it embodied within our profession. In my article in last month's APMA News, I shared with the membership that I quote, I believe that APMA as an organization needs to be cognizant of the past, fully aware of the present, and focused on the future. As a collective pasts are looked at, they're filled with pioneers, and whether we realize it or not, they're great pioneers within our profession and in each of our personal lives. A pioneer, by definition, is one who goes before to prepare or open up the way for others to follow. Personally, Rexanne and I both have a pioneer ancestry, which includes relatives who in the mid-1800s crossed the Mississippi River and journeyed west across the Great Plains to the Rocky Mountains. They blazed trails where no roads existed. They planted crops for those who would follow. We each share in that same pioneer heritage in our podiatric ancestry. Think of all the individuals who truly blazed trails. And in the process, they have planted crops for those of us who would follow to be able to harvest. Nowhere is that more evident than our legislative history. Seward P. Nyman helped ensure podiatry's inclusion in Medicare. Irvin O'Cannett was a pioneer in postgraduate education and also a founder of what is now our APMA Political Action Committee. And I personally express thanks to Irv for giving my nominating speech 12 years ago. I got involved with APMA PAC as a student when John Carson was the Director of Governmental Affairs. And I'm proud to say that for 4 years at CCPM, my classmates donated at a 90% rate. They also got tired of seeing me coming. Faye Frankfurt continued our great advocacy tradition on staff as we express gratitude for her service. Dr. Earl Kaplan, Teddy Clark, Ollie Foster not only forged new trails, but they also provided some fun with fundraising activities such as the KCF golf outing, which I have enjoyed. The giants and the visionaries of our past are often forgotten or underappreciated. As I previously stated, we need to be cognizant of our past. For this reason, we honor and we recognize some of the great leaders of our past here at our House of Delegates when we observe a moment of silence in their memory at the close of our business. It was Sir Isaac Newton that said, if I have seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. And by examining our history, we can objectively measure our progress and our growth. A pioneer is one who ventures into unknown, unclaimed territory to settle. Recently, I visited with Paul Listwood, president of the New York State Podiatric Medical Association, and he shared with me some history. It was 1895, for the first time anywhere, a group of people who shared a common interest in treating the ailments of the foot got together and they formed a professional organization. They called it the Pedic Society. On June 3rd, 1895, New York Senate Bill 195, authorizing the formation of the society and requiring state examination for chiropodists to be licensed, was passed, and podiatry was born. The Pedic Society still exists today, and it's known as the New York State Podiatric Medical Association. How about our APMA? From its English derivation dating to 1785, the term chiropodist was commonly used for referencing one who cared for the foot. It was 1912, the National Association of Chiropodists, the NAC, was formed, and it was renamed in 1957 to the American Podiatry Association. The APA was legally registered, however, in 1932 by the then president of the NAC, 25 years before that name would change. Visionary. It was 1984 when the current name, the American Podiatric Medical Association, APMA, was adopted. Our identity as an organization and a profession is a topic that carries us from a visionary past to a mindful present. It was a year ago when I chaired a working group for APMA, and the group was tasked with evaluating our name and our branding. A broad spectrum of the association was represented in the group, from students to life members, from large states to small states, from varied locations. We retained the assistance of a nationally respected and experienced consulting firm, McKinley Advisors. McKinley conducted extensive market research. They engaged in focus groups to test the concepts. After all the information was carefully considered and thoroughly discussed, it was determined that we should retain the APMA name, along with the added tagline, Advancing Foot and Ankle Medicine and Surgery. In the process of studying our brand, we also made some cognizant observations. When we think about cognizant of the perceptions of APMA and its resources, as well as the challenges to our sustainability as an organization were examined. And our greater understanding of those challenges prepares us to be able to plan for the future. Our keen awareness in the present leads us to an unprecedented legislative successes. A great thank you goes to Ben Wallner, to his staff, and Barney Bringberg and Patrick DeHeer and their committees. We've continued to work to fully ensure the implementation of our VA Provider Equity Act after seeing it signed into law last summer. APMA and its team is always ready to step into action. And as we leap into action, we did so this last fall as we addressed the CMS threat to collapse the E&M codes and throw podiatry its own G code. Together, we mounted one of the strongest grassroots advocacy efforts in the history of our profession. And the results were a resounding victory and a net increase to our bottom line of our reimbursements. The HELP Act is soon to be reintroduced into Congress, and we'll be calling on you soon for your sustained advocacy efforts. It is your participation in these efforts like this that make a difference. It makes a difference for us now and for those that will follow in the future. There's a saying here, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Know that APMA will continue to be at the table. I mentioned Rexanne and I had a pioneer ancestors who had crossed the plains, but on my Edwards side, it was a sweet grandmother in the early 1900s who crossed the ocean. She and my grandfather were raising their little family in Auckland, New Zealand. He sadly contracted pneumonia, and he passed away suddenly at age 38. My grandmother now found herself widowed with 6 months pregnant with my soon-to-be-born father. Along with that new baby and the 5 others she had to raise, she decided to pursue her religious faith in a pioneering spirit, and 2 years later she brought her family to settle in northern Utah, where I now live. My father was the youngest child, and he learned to work hard at a young age. And I, as the youngest son of the youngest son, am the benefactor of that pioneering spirit and its life lessons. Ultimately, my father ended up owning and operating his own business as a shoe repairman. I tell my patients I grew up fixing shoes, now I fix feet. My father instilled in me a desire for independence, and he marched to his own beat with integrity and a core set of values. After high school, I attended Utah State University for a semester as a business major, and then I left school and spent 2 years in the missionary service for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it was in this setting that I became aware of podiatry. Dr. L. Flake Rogers had left his podiatry practice in Utah in the hands of his son Mark, while he and his sweet wife Mary were serving as missionaries themselves. They were in a supervisory role overseeing the needs and the welfare of 150 young missionaries, including myself. like so many others, when asked the question how I found the profession, the answer is I had a personal experience with a podiatrist. And Dr. Rogers was my introduction. At the conclusion of my mission service, I returned to college as a business major at Utah State. But Dr. Rogers' influence on me was significant. He owned his own business. He had the opportunity and the satisfaction of providing needed service to his client base. And another sentiment that he shared with me, which resonated, was that as a profession, podiatry allowed time for personal interests, family life, and for God. In other words, a work-life balance. So eventually I shadowed Mark in his practice, and by the conclusion of my first year in college, I decided to become a podiatrist. The Rogers family is a great example for our profession. Mark, who swore me in today, as many of you know, is a longtime delegate from Utah. His brother Tom is also a podiatrist, and Mark's son Scott currently serves as president of the Utah Podiatric Medical Association, a three-generation podiatric family. Dr. Paul Liswood, whom I previously mentioned, had a grandfather who was a podiatrist. He was also part of a three-generation podiatry family, seen here being sworn in by his father Fred as president of the New York State Podiatric Medical Association. And here are Dr. David Armstrong and his father Leo, along with his daughter Alexandria, who plans to start podiatry school this fall. Dr. Armstrong truly fits another definition as a pioneer, one who opens up new areas of thought, research, and development. We have great ancestral history in our profession, and keeping this legacy alive is key to our future greatness. We have a need to nurture the rising generation to replace us. At present, our student applicant pool is challenged, threatening our ability to be sustained that great legacy that we've established. I mentioned earlier, allopathic medicine has a 2.5 to 1 ratio of applicant seats. It is very achievable for us to reach this ratio, but it requires a strong collective effort from all stakeholders. Those of you in this room today are much part of the solution. You sit here today as influencers in each of your own geographies locally. You're knowledgeable, you're articulate, you're well-respected physicians. I would challenge you as state components in an organized fashion to reach out to the multiple undergraduate institutions within your own geographies, build upon and strengthen the relationships within your pre-health advisors, go into the classrooms of the pre-health survey classes that are taught, and tell them that you will take the message to them and teach a class period. APMA is developing materials that you can use that will support you in these efforts. Currently, I teach a class at Utah State University every semester. The students are eager to learn more about podiatry. They're there to learn about medical professions and the possibilities that exist within medicine, and it's very satisfying to see students from each class after I finish teaching to seek shadowing opportunities. Shadowing's our secret weapon. What a tremendous tool. We know it personally. I encourage them to shadow many different specialties, however, but reinforce that if they do not shadow a podiatrist in undergraduate, they'll never know what our profession has to offer them. Because many of them don't even realize that podiatrists follow a separate educational path. Let me share 2 brief emails I received from just last month at my visit that I taught from a young man. Quote, "I'm a junior studying biochemistry. I have great grades. I'm a hard worker. I'm very interested in learning more about the field of podiatry and also in shadowing to gain a better knowledge and understanding of what it entails." A young woman in that same class from our Q&A period expressed that she personally had had a foot injury that had been treated by an orthopedist. She said, quote, "Prior to your visit, I thought of pursuing orthopedic surgery specializing in feet. After listening to you, I'd like to shadow under someone as I want to familiarize myself with your field, as podiatry may pique my interest over orthopedic surgery." These are just 2 examples, and I'm sure each of you have your own personal experiences that you can cite. Let's tackle this problem head on together. We can do it. Our students are the future, and I believe as a profession that we must follow the example of our pioneers and look toward that future. I'm proud of the this audience specifically because you lead by example. You've done so at this house. As you lead by example, along with your generous donations, others have been contributed, and that has made a significant impact on the APMA Educational Student Scholarship Fund. Because of your contributions, as I mentioned earlier, 324 scholarships went out to deserving students this year. More than $400,000 in scholarships this year alone. That's $750,000 combined with last year's monies. Thank you so much for the last 2 years. As we focus on the future, we have held at this House of Delegates for the first time a Young Physician Caucus. We're working hard to increase participation by young physicians in our leadership at all levels, the local, the state, the national levels. I mentioned before that our brand audit helped us deepen our understanding of some of the challenges that we face right here in the present. But many of those challenges exist in engaging our young physicians and offering resources to meet their unique needs. We continue to hold each year a Young Physician Institute annually, and there we provide leadership training. Our young physicians in this setting get great educational opportunities, but it's comprised of a leadership panel of young physician liaisons that serve on various APMA committees. It has also been able to help create a Young Physician Transition Series. The availability of this series is on the APMA website, but this resource is tailored specifically to all phases of young physicians' experience. Each year of residency, transition into practice, and to their more advanced practice seasoned. Residents will find information about coping with the stress of a residency program, about student loan debt, and being able to manage it, and board certification. Physicians in their first 4 years of practice can access coding and billing resources, and those in later years will enjoy the maintenance of certification resources and information about other things that will help them in their leadership roles and things necessary for their practice. Last July, the Deseret News editorial board published an opinion article. It was titled, "Pioneering Today, How Are You Leaving a Well-Marked Trail?" I'll share a few excerpts in my final reflections on the pioneer journey and how it applies to podiatry. It was July 24th, 1847. A group of weary pioneers began to straggle into the Salt Lake Valley. Their leader, Brigham Young, had declared it the right place. There was no time to rest. A city needed to be laid out, shelter established, crops planted, and thousands of their brothers and sisters were scattered across the American plains and needed to be brought in. This group of pioneers was vastly different in their drive and their determination from others in the mid-1800s who were racing to the gold mines of California or the forests of Oregon. The Utah pioneers weren't just in pursuit of their enrichment, but they felt a responsibility for those that would come after them. And this is the same mindset that you, the members of our APMA House of Delegates, possess. You're willing to give up your time, your money from your practices, time with your families, and your own personal interests to make things better for those that will come after you. And the extensive work that you've done here at the House in these past 2 years with our governance documents and the structure are a perfect example. Thank you. The Utah pioneer spirit is a principle that we continue to build upon. A pioneer is one who leads the way, a trailblazer, and you truly are pioneers. The Deseret News article continued, because of that mindset, there was a spirit of cooperation instead of competition, of shared responsibility instead of selfishness in those companies that crossed the plains. These pioneers were living the axiom from Ralph Waldo Emerson, where he said, "Do not go where the path may lead, go instead where there is no path, and leave a trail." Leaving a trail for those who follow is a hallmark of pioneers, entrepreneurs, and real leaders. We're leaving a trail with visionary leadership. Our Vision 21st Century, California's Physician and Surgeon Task Force, New York's Population Health Initiative, all of these are efforts that will blaze a trail for podiatrists who follow in the future. Over the past decades and centuries, pioneers and leaders from every walk of life have been recognized for their willingness and their desire not only to go where no one has gone before, but to go as far as it is possible for them to go. I started practice in 1987, and at that time, podiatrists in the state of Utah had no hospital privileges. Surgery centers were limited, but with the leadership of Mark Rogers, Kim Halliday, Glenn Gold, Kenny Stoker, and others in our UPMA leadership, those doors were unlocked. And I was the benefactor of their pioneering labors. My hospital was the third hospital in Utah to grant privileges to podiatrists. I stepped down after serving 4 years as department chair at that hospital after 30 years in practice. Wonderful to see how far we've come. We've truly come a long way. 4 years as ortho department chair. We continue to go as far as possible today because of our education and our training and our experience. It was my privilege 4 years ago to give back in that pioneering spirit as I testified before a subcommittee of the Utah State Senate. As we went before that legislative body, as we expanded our scope of practice in Utah to be able to include ankle fusions and ankle arthroplasties, allowing those with the education, the training, and the experience to practice to the fullest of their abilities. Ankle privileges are now in place in all but 3 states. True pioneers blaze trails, break down barriers, overcome obstacles, and then, not being content with their individual progress alone, ensure that the path is marked, guideposts are established, insights are passed on for those that will follow. We continue as a profession to break down those barriers and overcome obstacles, to build relationships. And from a relationship standpoint, we are grateful to have obtained official observer status at the American Medical Association House of Delegates, and a similarly strong ongoing relationship with the AOA and its House of Delegates. And we appreciate from hearing from both of those bodies at our House of Delegates yesterday. We have fostered a strong professional relationship with the American Diabetes Association, the Society of Vascular Surgery, the Society of Interventional Radiology, and the American Academy of Family Physicians, and others. As part of the ongoing task force that we've discussed here, we met at APMA headquarters just last month with the leadership from the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons, the American Association of Orthopedic Surgeons, and the American Orthopedic Foot and Ankle Society. The intent of this task force is to address common issues and to strategize together. And we can't let up on our continuing to strengthen our relationships involving all areas of our profession. I love the words from President Kennedy. Actually, he never got to deliver it. It was Dallas, November 1963, the day he was assassinated, that he would have said to us, if we are strong, our strength will speak for itself. But if we're weak, no words will help. We must continue to lead with strength, and to that end, know that I'm committed. The rugged individualism of America often suggests that pioneers have forged ahead on their own, isolated and alone. But true pioneers take the time to leave some insight and some wisdom for those that will follow and come behind them as they choose an equally difficult path. I like the African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We often say that as a profession, we are too small to be divided in any way. And our strength and our hope continue to stand as we stand together. There's little doubt that the greatest legacy that a person can leave is found in the principles and the lessons that they pass along to the next generation. Nothing is more rewarding or satisfying than helping others make their pioneer journey a little easier. Our world and our profession need pioneers. Our young physicians that are coming out into practice leave me no doubt that we will continue to forge a path for podiatry. The work that they're doing, the leadership roles that they're assuming, they give me great confidence in the future of this profession. We also need trailblazers who can mark the path, and that's part of what you do here at this House of Delegates. You show the way, and you pass on vital pioneering secrets. We should be thankful for those pioneers who have helped pave the way for our prosperity and the opportunity of today. And then we should strive to leave that ultimate legacy to our families, our communities, and our profession, that of a well-marked trail. Just one block down the street on the corner of Pennsylvania Avenue and 15th Street is a monument in the sidewalk. It's known as the Extra Mile. It was built in 2005 by the Points of Light Foundation, which was founded by President George H.W. Bush. The Points of Light pathway, it honors individuals who have set aside self-interest and have gone that extra mile. It tells the story of great Americans who, at personal sacrifice, proved that one person can make a difference. And it marks the trail of self-sacrifice with medallions that are set in the walkway, paying tribute to individuals, such as Frederick Douglass, a key architect of the movement to end slavery; Susan B. Anthony, instrumental suffragist who fought for all women to have the right to vote; Cesar Chavez, who advocated for a better life for migrant farm workers; and Paul Harris, who pioneered the service club movement and the concept of service above self, the motto of Rotary, of which he was the founder; Martin Luther King Jr., the civil rights movement leader. Just a short distance on the edge of the tidal basin is the Martin Luther King Memorial. And there, etched in stone, is a great quote: "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy." I've tried to live true to that sentiment in my service to APMA, to lead in times of challenge, to leave an easier path for those who come behind me, to embody that pioneering spirit in both of my ancestors and of my profession. I hope you'll join me this year in giving thanks to the trailblazers of the past, embracing the challenges of the present, and designing a bold path for the future. Thank you for this opportunity.